Hello, everyone. Welcome to my session about using PowerShell Universal and dbatools to automate database tasks. First and foremost, as usual, a huge thanks to our sponsors. Difficult times, and as we know, it's really hard to be able to get back to this, so we are really fortunate for that. A huge thanks to all the sponsors. For those of me who don't know me yet, my name is Silva. The first time that I was at this conference was like 3 years ago. At the time, I was a software developer. After this conference, I got like really itchy about PowerShell and all the things that I saw people doing. And I also was starting to get liking DevOps, automation, and things like that. So I decided to pursue that path, and nowadays I'm a DevOps engineer with main focus on helping teams trying to be more productive and lifting boring and time-consuming or error-prone use cases. And I also try to advocate for frameworks like PowerShell, more recently Docker, Terraform, and Kubernetes. Before we start, this is one of the last-minute changes that I did. I've been told today that there are a bunch of Learn DBA tools in a month of launches. So if you are here for DBA tools, or even if you are for PowerShell Universal, I'm sure you have heard about DBA tools. It's widely loved. So my brother is one of the contributors for the book, and he decided to allow me to give away one of the books for you. So if you scan this QR code, you just enter your name. You have to answer some really difficult questions. I think, well, if you can do that, it's a possibility to get a book. So yeah, try to enjoy it. The only request that I have is that in the end, if you don't mind, we take a picture so that we know it's true. Otherwise, it won't be on the internet, and it's not true. I'll place the link, the QR code again for you to scan if you don't scan it now. But yeah, let's go to what we came for. So a quick get agenda. I'll give a quick intro into PowerShell Universal. The person who created it's right behind it. He gave a session yesterday with a deep dive. So I don't know if you weren't there, but just to get some idea here, who here is familiar with PowerShell Universal? Okay, so a lot of people are not familiar. That's nice. So in this case, I'll be focusing on three components: APIs, automation, and the user interface. The main focus, or the one that I usually like the most, because the most visual one, is the user interface. And I'll talk about the use cases that will be showing up today. And then, of course, we go for the demos. So a quick introduction. We'll be seeing this on the web page, but we have, as I said, three major components. So for those of you on a quick context, PowerShell Universal came a long way from as far as I remember, started with PowerShell Universal Dashboard, and then it evolved into more components such as automation and APIs. Adam spoke about it yesterday, so if you watch the session, you can have the scope of the whole idea on how it evolved. Some of the use cases after watching his session, I saw that I'm still doing it the old way. It still works, but it's a work in progress, so that you can see that there are multiple ways to achieve the results. So we have endpoints for the API, so it's a really quick way to spin up a web API where you can make PowerShell codes and invoke and call these endpoints. Then we have on automation, we'll have scripts, we'll have jobs, schedules. Those are the three ones that I'll be focusing the most. So essentially, you create scripts. Those scripts can be scheduled to run within jobs. At least this is the way that I'm used to do. Or you can run the scripts as jobs without actually running, scheduling them. And then the dashboard will be the one that I use. There's also the pages, but I haven't used that. So what will we be seeing here today? It might seem that a lot of mix-up on the dashboard, but my idea is that to show you different possibilities ranging from backup, restore, duplication. For some reason, yeah, it's the other way around. But again, also we'll see possibility to ping the server from time to time to know what is the latency, if the server is up or not, or if it's a critical component that we need to keep a close eye on it. We'll have some graphics. We'll also be uploading and checking logs. This is one of the use cases that I actually used when I was a software developer. And I'll be also creating what I call burstable instances, which is a concept that I found well, if it's not useful, at least it's fun, and we'll be seeing that as well. So, yeah, already for the demos. So, for those that are not familiar, this is the user interface for PowerShell Universal. So this is not yet the dashboard that we'll be seeing. Instead, this is the dashboard for the PowerShell Universal itself. As I told you, we have here APIs and automations, and also the user interfaces. We have this pretty dashboard stating the status of the jobs that failed, jobs that ran, endpoints. We'll be seeing also why these jobs failed. They failed for a specific reason. And just to try to guide you through these concepts and to give you an overview on how this is currently set up. So PowerShell Universal is currently running on my machine. So this is not a Docker container, but instead is the executable. It's running as a process in my terminal. So if for some reason I stop this, the PowerShell Universal stops. You can also run it as a service. You can run it within containers, Linux, Mac, Windows, all of those traditional use cases. As a fun fact, I can't run it on my M1 Mac, but I think it's due to some layer incompatibility. I think it's on the Microsoft image. It's not actually an issue with the PowerShell Universal itself. So I have here this is PowerShell Universal running on my machine. And then what I also have is that I have a Docker container with the SQL instance running. So this is the instance that I'm currently running. And this is just to give you some context that I also have, we'll be seeing backups. And because this is running as a container, something that I didn't know at the time was that when you try to back up SQL Server database, you need to point the path to the actual to an actual path within the instance. Because it's running on a container, I was trying to back up, placing the full path of my machine, and it wasn't working. So what I did was that I mounted a volume from the container to my hosts. So if we see on the file system, I have these database backups, and this is essentially a map of what's running on the Docker container. Just to give you some more terminology, and so that we then can go to the examples, there's also this concept of having variables within the PowerShell Universal. So you can store variables to be used between the scripts for the automation, the API calls, and even the dashboard. So if you come here, and I actually, when I first started using this, I did a blog post about it, and there was some issues with PS Secret Store, which I think it was using Microsoft module, and it wasn't totally compatible with Linux and Mac at the time. Now it's currently fully supported. So as you can see here, I have my credentials for the SQL Server stored as secrets. I have some public variables, which is the backup folder path, also a backup folder path on the host. So as I mentioned, when we actually back up something, it will be seen both on the host and on the container itself. What else do we have? Well, I'll be focusing on the APIs more in the end, just to show you one of the use cases. But as I said, you have actually endpoints here. So if you come to this interface, you can actually run it within directly from this window. But I can make a simple call to get all the databases that I currently have on this instance. So just to make it a little bit bigger. As you can see, this is a simple endpoint which calls get DBA databases, and it returns the information about the database. It's not returning the whole information because I've actually filtered it to select only what I feel that it's useful. And this can be used, for instance, if you want to give some endpoints to some third party, you want to expose a simple API saying, hey, you can even do something like you can call this API endpoint to actually back up a database. So you have the possibility to run PowerShell code within API calls. So this can be nice to actually integrate with third-party components. Other examples that I'll be showing you is, for instance, I've created 3 scripts, and we can actually see it both here, or if you have the PowerShell Universal extension on VS Code, you can see it's really lightweight, but it's here, the icon for the PowerShell Universal, and you have these panes like you have on the UI, and I can see here that I have my scripts, and if I don't like to edit things on the UI or on the browser, I can actually come in and edit on VS Code. And it might actually be easier to read if I just show it here. So one of the examples, let's say that you want to automate your automate your database backups every day or every Monday at the beginning of the week. You want to back up every database that you have. It can be something as simple as get all the databases. In this case, I'm removing the master, the tempdb, the system databases, and then I'm iterating on them and actually just backing them up. So what this outputs, this by itself doesn't do anything because it's a simple script. So I can come here and I can invoke the script directly, or I can schedule it to run, well, as a schedule. So this will produce a job, and in this case, I've paused it, and I'll explain you in a second why I did it, but every 10 minutes, this will be backing up this Northwind database. So this could be something like it's a really important database that you need to back up, or you want to keep the information for that on a regular basis. So as you can see here on 10:30, every day this will run that backup all script. So what you actually see on this UI or in the file system, these 3 files here are actually the backups. If you can see here the timestamp, it says 12:30. So my guess is that it says that it runs at 10:30 a.m., but this should be UTC, and in this case we are in UTC +2, so it actually ran at 12:30. And if you try to see it, it actually matches with the time that the database the backup executed. So if you see here on the jobs, you see a bunch of scripts failing here, but what it's actually relevant for now is to find this backup all. So it says that it succeeded, and it took some time to back up, in this case, those 3 databases. So you might be wondering, why is this failing so much? One of the examples that I want to show you is like I was saying, it might be relevant to have on a dashboard database that you consider to be really important and you want to be on top of it. So I've created this script that actually from specific time, it actually pings the database and runs a query and returns the time it took for this whole travel, from connecting to the instance, running the query, and returning the result. And to show this, I store this in a JSON file, and I set it up to run like every 10 minutes, just so that I can have some information to show you by the presentation time. And what happens is that because I'm running an unlicensed version of PowerShell Universal, I'm limited to running 25 jobs a day. If you actually want to do something like this, you probably, if it's something you want to actually closely monitor, you can have something like a live monitor, which pings way faster, or just simply set it to run like once a day or something like that. And that will fall under the 25 jobs per day. But I'll be showing you the script, and also then what's the result on the UI. So this latency script that I was telling you, if not here, but in this case, it might be actually better once again to go and show it on the VS Code. So essentially what I do is that I get the date time and I create a folder, or in this case a JSON file within a .log that stores what is the time that at what time it ran and what was the average execution time for that query. Then I call the test DBA network latency. I specify, in this case, I'm always using localhost for the demo, but you could have something like a drop-down, or you could input what was the instance that you wanted to select. And then as the SQL credential, you can't see here any SQL cred variable, but this is one of those variables that are built, that I created, that are automatically loaded on the PowerShell Universal. And for that, the test DBA network latency returns the average, the total time, and one or two more components or properties, sorry. And in this case, I'm just selecting the average. And for the average, I want the milliseconds. Then I append it to a JSON file or a JSON object and store it on the file. So the file is something like this. So for today, we had it executed at 10:30, 10:40, 10:50, and every 10 minutes with the average. So what does this actually output? So if we come here to the user interfaces, I've created this dashboard like I told you, and this is the fun, cool part, at least for me. First of all, and a disclaimer, I'm not really good with UIs, so I just went with the whole automated or default theming stuff. Adam showed yesterday how can you customize the themes. If I had more time and more patience, I would probably try to deal with some CSS and try to make this looks prettier. But for the matter of this presentation, I think this is good enough. So as you can see here, we have a spike because the first execution took around 400 milliseconds. And then after every 10 minutes it ran, the average was like 60, 50 and something. There were times it was below 50. So this is a cool way that you can monitor if you want, like run it once an hour or something like that. But there's also this live latency. And this, what it actually does, this is using a component called UD monitor. And at the beginning, it produces like a lot of, a bunch of dates, including the daytime or the milliseconds. This is one of those cases that like I mentioned, I could try to format it for the output, but for the sake of this example, this actually works. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm pinging it like every 2 seconds. Any DBA would probably tell me that I'm crazy because I'm pinging the instance like every 2 seconds. And if this was a critical instance, I shouldn't probably be doing this. But just to give you an example, and don't be scared, this is like the dashboard, the whole dashboard that we'll be seeing. So I've collapsed the pages, but I have just one, I have the navigation menu, which I'll show you in a second, and then I have a bunch of pages. Each is actually a different view for what we'll be seeing. So for the dashboard, I have here 2 UD tabs. One has the overall latency, which was the first tab that we saw, and the second one is actually showing the live latency. And as you can see, what I'm actually doing is that every 2 seconds, like I said, I'm testing I'm running the test DBA network latency, just so that again I can get that output. And for the overall latency, it's loading the JSON file, which is a .log. It's loading from the file system and showing as a simple UD short.js. So as you can see, we have here 5 menus, but you can't actually see those here. And the reason for that is that because this is on the left side. So we have the dashboards, logs, management, instance, and this is the last one that I added. Instead of trying to practice my session, I spent the whole morning trying to add this tab. So Another thing that I think can be useful, at least it was for me, especially when I was a developer. I wanted an easy and quick way to actually analyze logs. So what I actually did at the time was I used import dba csv to import huge log files. So those were usually were .NET API logs. It was using, I think it was called mlog or something like that. So it produced a huge amount of logs, always separated by the pipe. And using import dba csv, I was able to upload it into the SQL Server, and then it was easier for me to do something like select everything from this table, where the filters could be something like custom filters with the dates can be between today and tomorrow, and the error level is at least log. It gave me more customization than simply using, for instance, Excel to load the whole file, especially if we talk about hundreds of lines and Excel starts to slow down when trying to apply the filters for those. So for that, I've created a simple empty database with table called log archive. And if I try to run here, if I did everything correctly, I've deleted the files because we'll be uploading that for this case. So before actually uploading, what this is doing is, just collapse this. Again, I'm using import CSV to load the CSV into memory, and then I'm actually using import dba CSV with the parameters to load the content or upload the content into the SQL Server. So I have a file here that has content for today, and as you can see here, this is a really small example. I've added 98 rows in like 255 milliseconds. So if I come back to my view logs, the UI, by default, this doesn't seem like the prettiest thing ever, but it is really powerful out of the box. For instance, if you are familiar, or even if you are not familiar, usually on the logs you have trace identifiers, which is what allows you to select, this is like a unique string that allows you to keep the whole trace of everything that's run and what call belongs to what. And you can set it up here like to filter. In this case, it's showing a lot of them because I've repeated the calls. It allows you to filter the action methods in this case. I can filter by post. It's smart enough to, if it's a post, it only show what is within the action for the post, because if I don't show anything here, you can see that we have posts and gets, and it allows you to have pagination and load the contents on the fly. You might be wondering, in case you are not familiar with import dba CSV, if it usually takes a lot of time or not. When I first run this, I think I run it like against 1 million rows or something, and it was really fast. But for this use case, I can show you here that I have a file. Let me try to fetch that. So all of this code will be available on the repository in the end. I'll share it on the GitHub for the PSConfEU. But if you see here on the helper scripts, I have this log example multiplied. So this is like 13 megabyte file. It might not seem much, but as you can see here, it added 50,000 rows within like less than 1 second. If I come back, I'm not sure what were the dates that I set up for that, but if I try to get the logs, maybe I set it for older dates. Yeah, I'm not totally sure what was the date, but yeah, it's not that relevant for now. But yeah, I probably set it for older date when I initially set up the demo. So that is for the logs. We also have another use case, which can be the management. And this, while I was trying to do this, I come across with some weird or what seemed to be bugs, but then I talked to Adam and it seemed to be fixed on the newer version. I didn't want to update because I was going to do the demo, so I didn't want to break anything. But essentially, the idea here is that you are able to backup, restore, and duplicate databases on the fly. So for instance, as you can see here already, we have three files, which are the ones that ran on 1230. And this is basically loading a dropdown. This dropdown is a UD select component, which is loading from the file system. That is why I had that variable for the local host or the host backup path for the database. So what we can actually do is, like, I can come here and I'll back up this log holder database. So we know that it has some rows on that. I can try to back it up. As you can see, it was lightning fast, and it said back up the log holder with the name demo_log holder. But if I come here, it doesn't show here for now. This is one of those cases that I said I was having issues with, because when I tried to auto-reload this, I would have some weird scenarios where it would actually reload the components and select the first one, but on the UI it wouldn't update. So for that reason, I found it easier enough to reload it. And as you can see here, it already shows as demo log holder. So if before I try to upload this, or I try to restore this backup, hopefully we can get this working. And if I do delete from the log archive database that I was telling you, so this is empty, and as you can see, deleted 100 rows. And if I try to run this, this is empty. And if I try to restore this database, again, I could do something like try to put some output while it's trying to update, and it says here, it should say here that the restore was completed successfully, but it seemed that it failed. So if I try to come and check here, it did not restore the backup. Let's try. Yeah. Why didn't this work? This is the other use case that I was telling you. So as you can see, this was the one that was selected by default. What happened here is that PowerShell Universal is not actually storing this value as the first one that is selected. So even if I try to press it here a lot, it wouldn't assume that this is the default value. What I have to do is that I need to change to another backup or another component and then reselect this. And if I try to restore it on the correct database, I should actually now, it should say processing. I should have put something like processing just to give a user output. But as you can see now, it says that the restore complete is true. This is fixed on version 3. I'm running the version 2.11 or something like that. So now I assume that if we come back here and I try to run this again, we have all the results that we had. So really fast, we were able to back up and restore a database. And this is something that you can give like to some coworkers. If there's a use case like, hey, I messed up the database, something, can we quickly restore it? You can have this within an internal portal or company portal, something like that, and allow people to actually go there and restore it. Ideally, this is something else that I didn't actually mention, but because I'm running the free version, anyone that can access this website can do anything. So it's not actually authenticating. If you run the premium version, you can specify like role-based access or sign credentials, give permissions to users, to given users. So you can create different dashboards or different menus for different kinds of users. And another use case that you can have for is if you are working with a team and you want to say like, allow me please to quickly duplicate this database so that my colleague can test it on their side. You can do something like, in this case, I'm prefixing with v2. So if I try to run the duplicate in this case, I'm not actually using the command. I think there's a command for dbatools that is duplicate. I wasn't able to successfully set it up working due to lack of my knowledge. what I actually did in this case, we had the same issue, which was because I didn't change which element was selected here. What the command actually received was backup, and because I didn't specify anything, it said backup everything. So that's why we are actually seeing here the v2 logger, v2 master, v2 model. So if I change it to a different database, so let's see the log holder, and change it to v3, this should actually only back up the log holder database. So what I'm doing is that I'm running, and I can show it to you. Let me remove the logs one, and what I'm actually doing is on the duplicate cards, so this is a bunch of cards, which are the components that you can see to differentiate those. What I'm doing is that I'm backing up the database, and right immediately, or immediately after, I'm restoring the database. This is the way that I found to set it working with, because the other way around, or the other use case that I was having issues saying that the database already existed with the MDF file, and I'm not that familiar with SQL to be able to understand how to solve it. And this also worked, so it's a different approach to the same goal. So what else do we have? Again, let me just give you a quick, I don't know if anyone didn't scan it or wants to scan this, for the possibility to get a book. There are some people scanning. So in the end, I'll actually do a raffle for the inputs that you have on the forms, and I'll randomly select a person, and I'll show you the code so that we make sure that I'm not fooling anyone for some reason. It's not that I didn't want to set it like my name 50 times and try to random those, but I did not. So last example that I'll be showing you here today is something that I did. I think it was more like for fun, but I think it can be quite useful. Again, the UI, it's not the prettiest. It's just to show some more components. And in this case, I have a slider that I've set it up to go from 1 to 10. And I've called these burstable instances. So what I'm actually doing is that I'm leveraging the fact that I'm running PowerShell Universal on my machine, on my host, so I can run everything that I can do on the terminal. And what this also allows me to do is, if I specify here ports like 1434, which is the one after the default for SQL, and if I press create instances, what will actually run is that it will run Docker commands to launch a lot of instances. So in this case, as you can see here, I think we already have, now we might have the 10 of them. And if we go to the terminal, and if we see Docker PS, what I actually did is that I've launched a bunch of SQL instances with the ports randomized, or not randomized, but in sequence. This can be useful to, like, let's say you want to perform load testing, or you want to give a bunch of instances to people to develop on a day, or even like for the week. And really quickly you can run Docker commands for that. So what I'm actually doing, just to show you, is that, let me close this one. So I specify with a UD slider the number of instances. I've set it up for 10 because I don't want to kill my computer, but you can specify like 100 or 200 or something like that. And you can, for each of them, in this case, I'm running Docker run, and I've called it burstable instance with some GUID name, and pass the port to use. This was a little bit tricky to actually do it because I wasn't familiar with running, specifying the port within as a variable within the PowerShell command. So it took me some trial and error. But yeah, in this case, I'm using an image from dbatools SQL instance, but you can use, let's say, the Stack Overflow is actually built in here, but you can use your custom image with some Docker, with some custom Docker image with instances for SQL for your workload. So, and for the refresh, or to actually show the content, this was again a little bit of tricky to actually show. I discovered that you can use the PS and specify the format, and I've used the convert from CSV with the pipe as a delimiter, and actually filter everything to show only those that start with the burstable instance, and did some nasty code to substring and show just the ports so that it can be easier for the user to see. And if you notice, this seems to be selectable. You can't actually see it on the screen, but it shows like a little darker, grayer on this. And if I select it, it actually shows me a model which I can actually try and set that I want to confirm that I want to delete this instance. So after some time, again, I could have some user interface to actually show this, but after clicking, it should, this was supposed to auto-refresh. Let's see if I can delete this one. Yeah, so I've deleted this burstable instance, and after it refreshed, it's no longer here. And just to finish, like I said, one of the use cases that you can have for the APIs, you could have it on an API, you could have it on a script. In this case, if I want, I can actually run the code similarly to the one that I'm running for deleting a single instance, but I can run native Docker commands on an API call. So if I run this command, what I'll be doing is actually I'll just get all the Docker containers running that start with burstable instance, and then select the names, and for each of those remove the Docker instance. So coming here, I can invoke REST method, and the method is the delete. And this should output the name of the instances that will be deleted. So as you can see, I've deleted all of them. So if we come back to try to see it on the dashboard, they are no longer here. And this was it. I don't know if we have some time for questions. I don't know if anyone has questions. Otherwise, I can try to jiggle, or we can try to go to the giveaway. I guess you don't have questions because you want the giveaway. So everyone scanned it. This is the last time that you can get for try to scan it. So before going for that, I'll show you what I did like this morning. So this is what I did for the giveaway. So you fill the form. I've asked Jakub if he could share the code with me. So we have here the form, and then I get, if this is wrong, don't complain to me, complain to Jakub. So if you don't win and you feel it's unfair, go meet Jakub and tell him that the code is wrong. But what I'm actually doing is that after getting all the answers, I sync the element to show a list of users, and then for those, I'll also show a button, and when you press the button, it will actually show a model saying who was the winner. Now, I tested it with some random name generated, and I got the barbecue lightsaber to win, so I assume that the code is working. I think, well, maybe you can see. Oh, I forgot to mention, but obviously you should place your first and last name, unless you have a really different name, but I think we can go for this. Does everyone see your names here? Does anyone want to drum roll or something? So, roll. Congratulations.
Wow,
and in the end, if you don't mind, we take a photo just for the social networks, if you don't mind, for Twitter.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah, but we saw that, the name, yeah. He won, no one. Reroll. So if we don't have any more questions, I think we can call it for the day. Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to ask if you actually do that in production with your SQL
instances, like use this framework for managing them, or is just for?
No, this was more like for a fun project for me because I don't actually work with SQL instances a lot. Some of the case that I did use was the one that I mentioned for the logs, but it was for personal use case. But I feel that at least for the burstable instances can be useful for demo environments. Obviously, there are a lot of people using DBA tools for production and moving things around and loading content and stuff like that. So I would say that if you actually know what you are doing, and usually people that are used to do this know the way to work with it, you can easily set it up to be like safe for production use cases. Again, you would probably need a licensed version to have the users, the rate limits, and things like that. But I feel that it's totally doable. And if not for production, at least for dev environments or for you to explore and learn more about DBA tools. Are there any more questions? Otherwise, thank you very much. Oh, I should be showing this one, but yeah. Thank you very much, everyone.